What is going on, guys? It is Sam, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing the Canon 1DX Mark II, which is filming me right now. So in this video review I'm going to be talking about the things that I freaking love about it, but also the things that I hate and simply put up with because the pros for me outweigh the cons, and I'm going to be talking about what those pros are and what those cons are. So initially when I saw the spec sheet for this camera, what drew me in was the 4K at 60 frames a second, the 120 frames at 1080p, and the dual pixel autofocus. And these three things by far are the pros for me, and they justify the camera's expensive price tag, which is around $8,500 in Australia. So when I bought the camera in Australia, it came with a CFast card as well as the generic accessories. So one battery, the camera strap, all of those different cords, etc. So out of the box, I could shoot with the camera straight away as I already had EF lenses, which I know most of you guys probably do as well. Some other things that, I purchased, which you guys probably would as well if you bought the camera, was an extra battery, which will run you about $200, as well as some CF cards. I definitely recommend buying CF cards over the CFast cards just because of the price difference. CFast cards are probably 5 times more expensive, and unless you're shooting 4K at 60 frames a second, you don't need it. You can shoot the higher 120 frames a second with the quickest CF cards, as well as 4K at 24, 25, and 30p. So while we're talking about data, I'm going to let you know the first thing that I hate about the camera, which is the file sizes. So if you're shooting 4K, just at 24 or 25 frames a second, you get about half an hour per 128 gigabytes, which is just insane, especially shooting weddings like I do. The wedding I have uploaded on my channel, which was shot entirely in 4K, was about 800 gigabytes, which is just rough. Now this is because of the codec the 1DX uses, which is the second thing I hate about this camera. Motion JPEG is awful. Not only the file sizes are huge, with only 30 minutes per 128 gigs, or 15 if you're shooting 4K 60 frames. Like 15 minutes? What are you thinking, Canon, with this codec? But then when you try and edit motion JPEG, my 5K Retina iMac can't even handle it, and I have to convert it all to proxies. It's just horrendous. But to balance that out, 4K at 60 frames in the size of a DSLR is just remarkable. When I bought the 1D, the only other cameras that offered those higher frame rates of 4K were like the Red, the FS7, and they're too big for what I do, and I don't want to have to deal with that size and form factor. Another reason I absolutely love the 1D is because it's the size of a DSLR. Shooting a wedding like that, you're not lugging this big camera around on your shoulder. I can stick it in my backpack when I'm traveling. I can kind of just, blend in with tourists or guests at a wedding. Even when I'm shooting music videos and stuff down in the city, I don't look like some big production company, even though this camera can outshoot most other bigger cameras on the market, which is just awesome. Which brings me to the next point. I don't have to have a massive crew with this camera. This camera has dual focus auto pixel, which I made a completely separate video about, but I'm going to talk about it again because it is that awesome. Basically, you can touch on the back of the screen to focus, and it can track them. You can rack between things by touching. It's just insane. I'm going to show you some sample footage right now, but basically this is one of the biggest selling points for me, especially filming weddings. You can get some really dynamic and awesome shots with it. That feature alone takes my production to a whole nother level and makes it look like I have a first AC with like a wireless follow focus. Another feature that I use all the time is the 100 or 120 frame a second higher frame rate option. So I use this for all of the model shoots because the codec is not as bad as the Motion JPEG, and it's a little bit slower than the 60p at 4K. So this enables 1 second to be like 4 seconds. So with a model, like all she needs to do is like do like a cute blink or something, and then that's like 4 seconds long and is perfect for a highlight. And it's just those little moments that matter so much for those films, and to be able to extend them out is just so perfect for what I do. So a few things that some people might hate, which doesn't really bother me too much, is a log profile and 10-bit color. So these things only matter if you're going to be grading extensively and all of that kind of thing. But for me shooting weddings, I shoot contrasty straight out of the camera, and I barely grade my footage that much because it looks so good coming out of the camera. The color science of Canon is just unbeatable, besides like Arri, which is Arri. This camera is also amazing in low light, and I'm happily shooting at 6400 ISO at a wedding reception when there's not that much light. It's perfectly usable. Whereas cameras like the GH4 just struggle above like 1280. So just in review, the things I love about it are the DSLR form factor, the low light capabilities, the 4K at 60 frames, the 120 at 1080, and the dual pixel autofocus. And for me, they outweigh the huge file sizes, the necessity to convert the 4K to proxies to edit, and the lack of a log profile. I can't really think of anything else about the camera. It's pretty awesome.